Okay, so today I'm going to talk about 3 crime books. 2 of them are pulp noir, one is just a thriller. One of them is excellent, one is very good, one was not very good at all. So yeah, first book was Blacktop Wasteland by SA Cosby. I was lucky enough to pick this up secondhand in a used bookstore in Bangkok. And I really didn't read it. I didn't read it until I just got back now. I was quite sick, so I've done a lot of reading while I've been sick. Yeah, Blacktop Wasteland. Holy cow. This book, absolutely amazing. Total masterpiece. Absolutely wonderful book. Really just everything you want in noir and everything you want in Southern writing as well is in this book. So it's very moody, it's very atmospheric, it's definitely Southern noir. This is the story of Bug Montage. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I mean, it's a fictional character. So he's a father, a husband, and a mechanic. And that last part is very important because he's also a getaway driver, or at least he used to be. But now he finds himself in a very treacherous downward financial spiral, and he really needs cash really bad. He's got family to take care of, he's got a business he's trying to run, and he's running out of money. So he agrees to take a sort of one last job. It's kind of one of those one last job stories. He's going to be a getaway driver in a diamond heist. But of course, things can't go well because otherwise it just wouldn't be fun and interesting, would it? So what happens is, without giving away plot points or spoilers, basically he's pulled back into this criminal underworld that he has tried very hard to leave behind. And also, it's the same criminal underworld that took his father away from him. So we not only get the Bug's story, but we also learn about his father too, and some of the things that have happened in his father's life. I can't really give a lot of, I can't really talk about it more without giving away the plot, but what I do need to say is that this book is just written so well. It's just so good. It's just like, it's one of those books where you read it and you just like, why did I not read this immediately when it came out? You know, I heard about it, I read about it a lot. It had a lot of buzz, but I never picked it up. And boy, wow. I mean, just from like the sentence level to the paragraph level to the chapter level to arcs within the story and just the whole book itself, it's just really crafted so well. I just can't say enough. I mean, like, it's like just a masterpiece of not only just crime fiction, but also noir and also Southern writing. I think I just can't say enough about it. I mean, he's just like just this really just fantastic writer. He's really just a master of his craft. And it's not just me saying this. I mean, I did a little bit of research on this book. It's won an Anthony Award, LA Times Book Prize Award, New York Times Notable Book. Those are 3 pretty hefty awards. And I think it really shows the distinction between a bestseller and an award-winning book. And the latter of those is going to be something worth reading. So, a little bit about Cosby. He's a Southerner himself. He's from Virginia. He's African American. And those 2 things really show he really knows his stuff. He writes with extreme authenticity, but at the same time, he's also able to create a world that invites the reader in immediately, and he really lets the reader into the world. He's not really interested in sort of outdoing the reader or blocking the reader out of his world. He's very much letting you into a world that his characters inhabit, which is a very realistic world. And in this world, there are constant issues of race, there are constant issues of wealth inequality, and constant, how places change. And I think, to me, that's what really makes this story work. It's not about the crime. The crime itself is very simple. It's nothing like terribly shocking or revealing when you sit down and analyze the crime plot. But where the story becomes really rewarding is that it's really about people, it's about characters, and it's about place. And that's really what makes this book work so well. And speaking of place, that really leads pretty nicely, I can't believe I just did that, to the second book I read, which was Nobody's Angel by Jack Clark. I read this on Kindle. You can see the cover here. This is a hard case crime book, but it's not a crime book. It's not a detective novel. And it's one of the more outstanding hard case crime titles that they put out. They do put out a lot of books that aren't really worth reading, in my opinion. Maybe not a popular opinion in the crime thriller mystery world, but they do put out a lot of just not very good books. So this is a story set in Chicago, and I believe it's set in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, but I think it's the late 70s. The exact year isn't really mentioned, unless I missed that. But it's about a cab driver named Eddie. And, of course, Eddie's life is a big mess, which makes it interesting to read. And that's really a small reflection of the larger mess of the city and the times that he is living in. And that's what this novel is really, that's what this novel is really about also. It's about place. It's about the city, and in particular, the city of Chicago. And it's a very tragically American depiction of the city. Again, very accurate, very realistic issues, again, of wealth, poverty, race, sexism, loneliness, lost dreams, the high life and the low life, and really ultimately urban decay and how American cities crumble in on themselves, basically. And it's urban in every sense of the word too. It's like we've got burned out tenements, we've got corrupt police, and basically we just can't find any good. And the good that does exist, though, is of course in the people. And that's what Clark is really good at, and that's what this book is really, that's where this book really shines. He's got a really unique and quite a powerful talent for portraying what, to me, are very American characters. They're very real, very genuine people just kind of living a sort of day-to-day life, just trying to get through. They know that where they live is not good. They know they're not the cream of the crop or the elites or anything like that, but they just want to kind of live their life. And I enjoyed it too because I haven't lived in America for a long time, and I often find myself hungry for these kinds of stories to sort of remind myself of the America that I left, for better and for worse. I mean, the state of America, for better and for worse. And also too, like a time when people lived that, is gone. This is not a time of cell phones and screens and, the sort of digital world that we live in now. This is very much an analog world. But yeah, I found that the character portrayals were really what made this book shine. And I also found too that it had some really poignant and pretty interesting and well-written sort of snapshots of the city. There is something of a plot, although it's very much kind of in the backdrop behind the characters. someone is killing cab drivers and possibly call girls. And, Eddie and his cab driver friends, this is something that sort of looms over them as they go about their lives in the city. And I think if there's a flaw in the book, that would be the flaw, is that there's really not much plot here. The plot comes out very quickly in the beginning of the book, and then, like I said, it's always kind of in the background, and then suddenly at the end, it all gets kind of wrapped up. So, again, though, it's another book that's very much just about place and maybe even more about a time in America. So it's a very good read, very, very interesting read, not just for crime readers. And in some ways, it's maybe kind of a shame that this would be living under the name of hard case crime, because it's definitely not a crime book. And I think a lot of other readers of contemporary fiction could find a lot of value in this book, but they may not, because it's kind of tagged as that genre of fiction. So I've talked about The Excellent, which was SA Cosby's Blacktop Wasteland. I've talked about The Very Good, which was Jack Clark's Nobody's Angel. And now I'm going to talk about a book that really disappointed me, and maybe I'll have some things to say about that. This book is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. Yeah, wow. This is the kind of crime book I don't want to read. This is the kind of crime book I try to avoid. This is a book that tried so hard to be something. And I tried hard to like it, to be brutally honest with you. I wanted to like this book. I was very intrigued by it when I learned about it. But yeah, it just didn't deliver. So this is the story of a journalist, a failed journalist, and his two, I guess we could call them sidekicks. So here's kind of where it kind of gets, yeah, we kind of get lost already. They're investigating the mysterious death of a even more mysterious film director's daughter. The daughter is not the mystery, it's the director, the film director, who's the mystery. And his films are very rare, and he's a very reclusive person, and there's lots of like strange rumors about him and his films and the effect the films have on people. And so right away, we're kind of wondering, what kind of book is this? Is this an investigation? Is this a thriller? Is this a takedown or an observation piece on Hollywood? Is this a horror story about this director? Is it going to be everything, which would be pretty amazing if it was? And I will say, I mean, it had a lot of potential. It had, the pieces were all there. I just felt like they didn't come together, and I'll tell you what kept them from coming together. I really wanted to like it. I really, really wanted to like it. But for me, it was really just boring and quite dreadful, to be completely honest with you. Just even from a sentence level, and I think I'd have to look at it again. It's on my Kindle right now, but I think even just like on the first page, the author does this thing that the author puts words in italics to show you that they're really important. You don't need to do this. You shouldn't. If you find that you have to do this, you need to go back and do a rewrite. Yeah, I teach writing. I mean, I teach writing in elementary and in middle school. And I always teach students, don't put words in italics, don't put words in all capitals. Even if the character is screaming, you don't do that. But this author just like really felt the need to put words in italics. And I just felt like from go, that was just like, why? That is just the wrong thing to do. Why are you doing that? But it's not all bad. I mean, there are some things that are really interesting in this book in that it's almost kind of a mixed media approach. There's a lot of like web pages and articles and blog posts that the author sort of creates as like supporting source material in this investigation. And there's even some things on their website, stuff like that. And all that stuff is really cool. And it almost becomes a kind of like postmodern thing to kind of add some other dimensions or some depth to the book. But it really just kind of comes off as a sort of airport thriller meets House of Leaves kind of thing. And it just didn't work. It just didn't work for me. I mean, for some people, you know, they probably would really enjoy it. And I know some other people on BookTube had told me that they really liked it. But like I said, for me, like I just had a hard time even sometimes just on a sentence level. And there's a lot of like sermonizing and explaining from characters too, which again, I just is something I just really don't like. But it did, I mean, a lot of people did like it. In fact, it's, you know, New York Times best seller. And, you know, I kind of want to return to the point I made about Blacktop Wasteland. And that's the distinction between an award-winning novel or a novel that wins multiple awards and a best-selling novel. The gap between those two, particularly within this genre, particularly within crime and thriller, that it's just massive. I know that seems really obvious, but to me, it just was like painfully obvious with this book. You know, sadly, winning an award doesn't seem to beget sales, while selling seems to beget more selling. So, yeah, so there we go. Again, 3 books. Really can't recommend SA Cosby and Blacktop Wasteland enough. If you're curious also, I think Nobody's Angel is definitely worth checking out. Would not recommend Night Film by Marissa Pessel. So once again, this has been Please Read Your Book. My name's Carl, and I hope to see you again soon.